welcome to Everyday Story. We're going to read story, but first we're going to have outline. You're going to be the synopsis, and then you're going to be reading Pilgrim's Progress. I hope you guys enjoy. Make a like button, subscribe, and shoot the bell with one of these. And here is Dad to read something. I'm just joking. It's the Holy Bible, and we should never forget what it's called because it's holy and awesome. See ya.
I still don't know what happens during the intro. It is one of the great mysteries of mankind. So, now we're on Exodus chapter 32, which is a very popular story from the book of Exodus. I promised we were getting back to stories, but don't worry, we are going to have lots of chapters about them building all the things that God told them to make. So that will be super exciting. This also has some, I think, rather humorous things going on in this story. So let's just go ahead and read it, and then we can talk about it if we want to, maybe even offline. All right, so this is Exodus chapter 32. This is the English Standard Version. Let me begin. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take off the rings of gold that are in your ears of your wives, in the ears of your wives. Your sons, I skipped a line, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron, and he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord." And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, for the people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now, therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation of you.' But Moses implored the Lord his God, and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, with evil intent did he make them out, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger, and relent from this disaster against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord relented from the disaster that he had spoken of, bringing on his people. Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, tablets that were written on both sides, on the front and on the back. They were written. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, 'There is a noise of war in the camp.' But he said, 'It is not the sound of shouting for victory, or the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing that I hear.' And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the people of Israel drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you, that you have brought such a great sin upon them?" And Aaron said, "Let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, that they are set on evil. For they said to me, 'Make us gods who shall go before us.' As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, 'Let any who have gold take it off.' So they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf."
Is that what happened?
And when Moses saw that the people had broken loose, for Aaron had let them break loose, to the derision of their enemies, then Moses stood at the gate of the camp and said, "Who is on the Lord's side? Come to me." And all the sons of Levi gathered around him, and he said to them, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, put your sword on your side, each of you, and go to and fro from gate to gate throughout the camp, and each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor." And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And that day about 3,000 men of the people fell. And Moses said, "Today you have been ordained for the service of the Lord, each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, so that he might bestow a blessing upon you this day." The next day Moses said to the people, "You have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin." So Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written." But the Lord said to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. But now go, lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I will visit their sin upon them." Then the Lord sent a plague on the people, because they had made the calf, the one that Aaron made. And there it is. So this, the one that Aaron made, it's interesting.
It was interesting how he, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, all right. So there's lots and lots that we could go into on that, and I'm going to leave it for now. All right. So we, in the last chapter of Pilgrim's Progress, we visited our friendly giant again, Hagrid, and he gave them a nice tour of the castle grounds, and then he left them back in their luxury apartments where they had lots of feasting and merriment, and they decided to stay there for the rest of their days. Here's Kimberly to say what really happened.
So, it was the giant despair, right?
Yes.
He went down and he's like, "Oh, you two didn't kill yourselves. Well, I'm gonna kill you later, in like 2 weeks or something." So he goes over and he talks with his wife again, who's like, "You know what? Go show him show them all the pilgrims that you've killed over the years," and yada yada yada. So he goes over, takes him out of the jail cell, not luxury apartment, Dad. And he gets them and shows them the courtyard that's littered with dead pilgrims. And he's like, "This is what happens to people who sit on my land. Nyam, 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 nyam." And he says, "I'm going to give you 2 weeks. You can do it yourself or end up like this, torn in half and stuff." Yeah, pretty bad. So, guess what? They escape because Christian remembers he was given a special key. And it opens all the doors he tries it in. including the jail cell, the chains, Hopeful's jail cell and Hopeful's chains, the door to the jail cell, and the gate to the castle.
She remembers
Because her memory is impeccable. I don't know why.
And then once they go out, they're like, hey, I wonder if some people will make the same mistake as us. So they decide to make a giant,
Sign.
they make a sign that says, here lies the Despair Manor, or something like that. Oh, Christian received the key when he went over to, it was after the Wicket Gate, after the Lions. No, wait, was that before the Wicket Gate?
I don't know. It was in a previous chapter.
Yeah, look back on
You have to listen to the whole thing over again.
Sorry. But, they basically say, this is the Castle Despair, and it's an enemy to the Pilgrims. Go past it. And a lot of people saw that sign, and a lot of people did not go to the castle. Which is a bummer, because I'm sure it probably looked pretty cool. I'm going to hand it off to Dad, who's going to read us a story.
A bummer because it looked cool. I
bet-
don't think it looked cool.
I bet-
It had the bones of dead pilgrims.
Talking about the architecture.
It was littered with the bones of dead pilgrims. Beware, there be giants beyond here.
Had the bones of the knees.
There be giants, there be here. All right. So now we're on chapter 31, which is called Mountains and Shepherds. We are literally on the downward end of this book, and then we have something special for next time. So I don't know what can be more special than this. All right, so this is chapter 31, Mountains and Shepherds. Let's get started. They went then till they came to the Delectable Mountains, which mountains belong to the Lord of that hill, of which we have spoken before. So they went up to the mountains to behold the gardens and the orchards, the vineyards and the fountains of water, where also they drank and washed themselves, and did freely eat of the vineyards. Now there were on the tops of these mountains shepherds feeding their flocks, and they stood by the highway side. The pilgrims therefore went to them, and leaning upon their staffs, as is common with weary pilgrims when they stand to talk with any by the way, they asked, whose delectable mountains are these, and whose be the sheep that feed upon them? The shepherds. These mountains are Emmanuel's land, and they are within sight of his city, and the sheep also are his, and he laid down his life for them. Christian. Is this the way to the celestial city? The shepherds. You are just in your way. Christian. How far is it thither? The shepherds. Too far for any but those who shall get thither indeed. Christian. Is the way safe or dangerous? The shepherds. Safe for those for whom it was to be safe, but transgressors shall fall therein. The shepherds aren't really giving them any information, actually. Christian. Is there in this place any relief for pilgrims that are weary and faint in the way? The shepherds. The Lord of these mountains hath given us a charge not to be forgetful to entertain strangers. Therefore the good of the place is before you. I saw also in my dream that when the shepherds perceived that they were wayfaring men, they also put questions to them, to which they made answer as in other places, as whence you came, and how got you into the way, and by what means have you so persevered therein? For but few of them that begin to come hither do show their face on these mountains. But when the shepherds heard their answers, being pleased therewith, they looked very lovingly upon them, and said, Welcome to the Delectable Mountains. The shepherds, I say, whose names were Knowledge, Experience, Watchful, and Sincere, took them by the hand, and had them to their tents, and made them partake of that which was ready at present. They said, moreover, "We would that you should stay here a while to be acquainted with us, and yet more to solace yourself with the good of these delectable mountains." Then they told them that they were content to stay. So they went to their rest that night, because it was very late. Then I saw in my dream that in the morning the shepherds called up Christian and Hopeful to walk with them upon the mountains. So they went forth with them and walked a while, having a pleasant prospect on every side. Then said the shepherds to one another, or one to another, "Shall we show these pilgrims some wonders?" So when they had concluded to do it, they had them first to the top of a hill called Error, which was very steep on the farthest side, and bid them look down to the bottom. So Christian and Hopeful looked down, and saw at the bottom several men dashed all to pieces by a fall that they had had from the top. Then said Christian, "What meaneth this?" The shepherds answered, "Have you not heard of them that were made to err by hearkening to Hymenaeus and Philetus, as concerning the faith of the resurrection of the body?" And by the way, I think we can look those people up in 2 Timothy 2:17 and 18 if anybody's interested in doing that. They answered, "Yes." Then said the shepherds, "Those that you see lie dashed in pieces at the bottom of this mountain are they, and they have continued to this day unburied, as you see, for an example to others to take heed how they clamber too high, or how they come too near the brink of this mountain." Then I saw that they had them to the top of another mountain, and the name of that is Caution, and bid them look afar off, which when they did, they perceived, as they thought, several men walking up and down among the tombs that were there, and they perceived that the men were blind, because they stumbled sometimes upon the tombs, and because they could not get out from among them. Then said Christian, "What means this?" The shepherds then answered, "Did you not see, a little below these mountains, a stile that led into the meadow on the left side of this way?" They answered, "Yes." Then said the shepherds, "From that stile there goes a path that leads directly to Doubting Castle, which is kept by Giant Despair. And these men," pointing to them among the tombs, "came once on pilgrimage, as you do now, even until they came to that same stile. And because the right way was rough in that place, they chose to go out of it into the meadow, and there were taken by Giant Despair and cast into Doubting Castle, where after they had a while been kept in the dungeon, he at last did put out their eyes, and led them among those tombs, where he has left them to wander to this very day, that the saying of the wise man might be fulfilled, 'He that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead.'" Then Christian and Hopeful looked upon one another with tears gushing out, but yet said nothing to the shepherds. Then I saw in my dream that the shepherds had them to another place in a bottom, where was a door on the side of a hill, and they opened the door and bid them look in. They looked in, therefore, and saw that within it was very dark and smoky. They also thought that they heard there a rumbling noise as of fire, and a cry of some tormented, and that they smelt the scent of brimstone. Then said Christian, "What means this?" The shepherds told them, "This is a byway to hell, a way that hypocrites go in at, namely, such as sell their birthright with Esau, such as sell their master with Judas, such as blaspheme the gospel with Alexander, and that lie and dissemble with Ananias and Sapphira his wife." Then said Hopeful to the shepherds, "I perceive that these had on them, even every one, a show of pilgrimage, as we have now, had they not?" The shepherds, "Yes, and held it a long time too." Hopeful, "How far might they go in pilgrimage in their day, since they, notwithstanding, were miserably cast away?" The shepherds, some farther, and some not so far in as these mountains. Then said the pilgrims one to another, We had need to cry to the strong for strength. The shepherds, Aye, and you will have need to use it when you have it too. By this time the pilgrims had a desire to go forward, and the shepherds a desire they should. So they walked together toward the end of the mountains. Then said the shepherds one to another, Let us here show the pilgrims the gates of the celestial city, if they have skill to look through our perspective glass. The pilgrims lovingly accepted the motion, so they had them to the top of a high hill called Clear, and gave them the glass to look. Then they tried to look, but the remembrance of that last thing that the shepherds had shown them, made their hands shake, by means of which impediment they could not look steadily through the glass. Yet they thought they saw something like the gate, and also some of the glory of the place. Then they went away and sang, Thus by the shepherds secrets are revealed, which from all other men are kept concealed. Come to the shepherds then, if you would see things deep, things hid, and that mysterious be. When they were about to depart, one of the shepherds gave them a note of the way. Another of them bid them beware of the flatterer. The third bid them take heed that they slept not upon enchanted ground. And the fourth bid them Godspeed. So I awoke from my dream. And that is the end of 31. And next time we'll read 32, which is called Ignorance, Turn Away, and Little Faith. The first word is and. All right, so we will read that one next time, hopefully tomorrow. And looking forward to seeing you again. I have no idea what's going on behind me, but you can say goodnight to JJ, and God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.